Here. Mayor Morgan.
Here.
Ms. Munoz.
Present.
Mrs. Belisca. Here.
Salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It's a public meeting of the Borough Council, Borough of New Providence, County of Union, State of New Jersey. Adequate notice has been given in accordance with PL 1975, Chapter 251, annual notice, or revision was made in conformance with Section 13 of the Act. At this point, we have council discussion on Chapter 310, codification and amendment, and we welcome the Kim.
Thank you. Is this supposed to be on?
Or is it executive session?
It's not executive.
Oh, no,
No.
it's regular meeting. Oh, okay. Okay, then I'll just keep going. Thanks for having me.
I'd say McKinley works, but I know you got married, so
I actually kept my maiden name. because
perfect. You don't like to
McKinley
make
sounds
things
better.
difficult for me.
Yeah. Well, I figured it'd be easier than telling everybody.
Yeah.
It's a lot of paperwork. So.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. COVID wedding, you know. We were one of those little ones. But anyways, thank you guys for having me. Oh, there you go. It's good to be back. I haven't been back in front of you since affordable housing, so this is a much better topic, I would say. As the mayor mentioned, our office has been working to prepare a codification and amendment to your Chapter 310. The PowerPoint I put together is very short. I'm positive you guys read all 300 pages in detail, right? So we're good. Okay, great. No, I thought for tonight I would go over some of the big picture items with you, larger things that have changed within the ordinance, kind of what the ordinance is for those of you who haven't worked with it before. And I am available for specific questions, but I've been working very closely with Wendy, with Bernadette, with Keith, with Debbie, with Margaret, with your building department staff to make sure that what we're proposing here tonight is in line with the borough's goals for the future, as well as your master plan from 2017. So Chapter 310, again, for those of you who haven't worked with it before, that's your zoning ordinance. So that controls all of the development that happens within the borough, all of the height restrictions, setback coverage, use restrictions, all of that is under, most of that is under 310. That chapter has not had a comprehensive review since the 80s. And what that means is that all of the amendments that have happened have really just, they've been piecemeal. And there were over 30 ordinances since 2006 that hadn't been codified and incorporated into the chapter. So what that meant was the chapter was confusing, it was all over the place, it was contradictory with itself, because when you do it that way at first, that's fine, but when you don't codify it all together after so many years, things stop jiving together. So many calls I got from applicants asking where the sign standards were that I was citing because it was an ordinance from 2011. So those were the things that we came in and tried to fix here. Also, not just making sure everything was codified in the past, but because there hadn't been a review in about 35 years, there were a consistent amount of components of Chapter 310 that were fairly outdated or just not something that the borough wished to pursue any further. So nothing has fundamentally changed with what we are doing in your Chapter 310, in your building standards ordinance. But again, we are updating it, we are modifying it so that it now represents what's happening really on the ground with your development, what you wish to see, and eliminating those uses or those standards that really aren't consistent anymore with the development you want moving forward. Also, a big part of this is that it's going to be much more user-friendly because it's all going to be in one place with the table of contents, and will eventually be online on your e-code as well. So just an overview, what we've been doing for the last 11 months really at this point. Like I said, we've been working with your building department. We've also been your planner for many, many years, and I personally have been the planner for both boards for at least 4 years now. What year is it? Maybe 5. So lots of intimate knowledge of the ordinance itself. Worked closely with Keith and Debbie over the last few years because they are a wealth of knowledge about what's happening. And the history of what's happened as well. So there's been a lot of back and forth between me and them. Since April, we've had larger in-person meetings that included Bernadette and Wendy to, again, make sure that the desires of you as the council and the borough were represented. And each zoning district, really, the process that we took from our side was going through the entire existing ordinance, page by page, point by point, getting all of the old ordinances that were adopted and get them in place to where they belong. But then, as I said, going through each zoning district, each standard, and making sure it was where we wanted it and needed it to be. to move forward. So what's changed? Everything that this council or your predecessors have adopted that was not replaced or is no longer relevant, those were discarded. But everything that's been adopted that remains current law has now been put into proper order within your ordinance. Outdated sections have been eliminated. So for example, we took out a section on mobile homes. There was a whole big section about mobile home parks, which you don't have, nor do you have the room for one, and nor do you desire that land use here. So those are the kinds of things we took out. There was a considerable amount of update to the definitions section. I find when working with an ordinance, the more definitions the better, because it leaves much less room for ambiguity when you have a use come to your building department, to Debbie, and ask if they're permitted to do that. It's much better for her if she can go straight to a definition and be like, yes, this is exactly what you're proposing, it's permitted, or no, it's not in here, so no, you have to get a use variance. So, and again, those were also adding definitions that were not common in the 80s. Taking out ones that are no longer common. The planned residential development, those kind of developments aren't happening anymore, again, nor do you have the space for that, you don't have the vacant acreage. Those types of definitions were removed. So with that, again, some new uses were added. I gave examples of some updated ones, such as mixed-use structures. Your current ordinance does not permit in your downtown to have retail on the ground floor and residential on the top floor, and that really is sort of the crux of a thriving downtown. You want residents that are right there and can patronize those businesses just walking downstairs or down the street. So that was not even that. It's not that was something the borough didn't want. It's just, again, been a long time since the update. Same with office spaces. There's been a lot, and the pandemic's even accelerated this a little bit. There's been a lot of transition and evolution in what makes an office space. So different types of office space definitions were included. And as well as included in the definitions, they were also included in the permitted use charts. Some of you that were here back in 2017 or 18 might remember that our office prepared a draft of a new downtown ordinance. It's based off the 2017 re-examination report. And that ordinance was graphically laid out and was never formally adopted and codified, and there was all sorts of reasons that went into it, but our understanding from working with the building department and with the administration was that those standards were still desired, because again, those are allowing more flexible uses in your downtown, a little bit of height flexibility on that as well. So all of those standards from that, without any change, have been incorporated into this ordinance. And all of those standards were reviewed by this council or your predecessors, as well as the planning board. So that would be nothing new if you had seen that a few years ago. All of those are now in here. The one big difference about that is that it added a new zone, and it's the only zone boundary change that is included in this. And that is that we have the central commercial district, which has always been there on the spine, but we're adding two little sectors that are, let's see if I can zoom in on that at all. Do you have a pointer? So we're adding two new little zones for called the Central Commercial District Townhouse District.
It's not a pointer.
Oh, it's not.
We'll make it bigger.
Yeah, if you hold it.
If you hit control and scroll up.
Great. So that's this pink one here. Oh, you can't see my mouse. Okay, that's the pink one at the top and the pink one in the middle to the bottom. Currently, and I'll zoom, this is the current zoning map. So we're looking at sorry, I don't have it, forgot a pointer. So we're looking at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parcels that are to the left of the RS zone and north of what is this, the C zone there, as well as this little crux between the R4 zone, which you can see them here, between the R4 zone and the downtown zone. Existing, the one on the bottom of the screen, the bottom purple one, that's already a townhouse development. So the thought back in 2017 was that it made sense to include it here as its own townhouse zone that also permits retail uses if it should redevelop at some point. And then this one, the new townhouse district to the north on the corner there, encompasses all of the properties to the west of the Bearbash Manor. Those, I believe, are currently just mostly small residential structures, single family, I believe. I think there might even be a vacant parcel or two in there. And again, the thought back there was they're right on the edge of that downtown. And this isn't forcing anybody to change. They can keep living on as they are. But if in the future it wanted to turn over, this gave it an option as well as a transition from the commercial district into the single-family residential district. And again, that's nothing different from the original downtown ordinance that was prepared in 2017, 2018. And that is the only zone boundary change that we are proposing. All of your other zones are remaining the same, with basically the same standards, I should say too. Most of the bulk standards will not be changing in any of the zones. A few of them have been updated based on what we have seen coming to the boards. For example, in the OR zone, we decreased the front setback a little bit because we didn't want to permit cars parking in the front yard. We wanted them to pull to the side or to the back. So very minor changes in the bulk standards for the rest of the town. Also, what was included was the new state-mandated electric vehicle infrastructure ordinance that came into law last September. It's something that's new for New Jersey. It's, I believe, the first time, with the exception of DEP stormwater rules, that a zoning ordinance has come down from the state. So whether towns have adopted it or not, it's been law since September of 2021. And really, it does actually enforce the ordinance that you all adopted last year or in 2020, encouraging and requiring electric vehicle infrastructure. This is a slightly different standard than what you adopted, and it has a phasing chart involved in it too. So for commercial or residential developments that have a large requirement of electric vehicles, they can phase it in over a 6-year period. So they don't have to build them all right at once. So that's been included. We also included a section with green building standards, sustainability, resiliency. Those are guidelines, they're not standards. We're not requiring anybody to get LEED certified or to build an expensive solar roof, but they provide options and guidelines and standards, and we find that it really does spark interest in people who maybe don't know the options available or don't know what the technology is. So really just including those guidelines for anyone in the future who's interested. And finally, I mean, this is not a change, but everything is a change. Everything's been reorganized. The entire plan, the entire ordinance has different ordinance sections now. So to help both the borough and applicants who are coming in who are maybe used to the old ordinance, we've prepared, and that was part of your packet as well. Oops, I'm sorry. A couple charts, one that compares the old ordinance sections where everything is to where they are going to be in the new ordinance, and then vice versa, because sometimes that's helpful as well. All of the new ordinance sections and where you could have found them in the old ordinance. So that way, hopefully it'll be a good roadmap to what's happening and people won't get lost. Until eventually people get used to using it. And so the end product of this, once our office is still working on finalizing a few things, we will provide the borough with a full Word document of the final plan in a binder so that things can be taken out and added as needed. Because I think that was also part of the problem, was not being able to add new ordinances right in. But also the Word document itself, so they can, whoever's in charge of the building department can go straight in and, or the clerk, Wendy tells me she won't be here forever, which I can't believe, but somebody will be able to go right in. Someone will be able to go right in and actually get these codified so that they aren't just stuck at the end and everyone's confused. And then it's also recommended that, I don't know who manages your E-code account, which is the online ordinance, but that should also be updated so that no one is finding two sets of ordinances. And then what's next from here? After our meeting today, there are still a few things that are going on in terms of edits. We have someone in my office going through it to make sure that all of the references have been updated. So if you're referencing a certain section, it's not referencing the old ordinance. There was a couple things we were still finalizing. For example, the parking chart for the new uses that we're including. We're still finalizing the parking requirements. And actually just the other day we had a TRC for the Spring Grove nursing home over there. We realized we want to make sure that they don't get zoned out. So we're double checking that the standards that we have allow them to continue on as well. So again, just a few minor edits and nitpicky things here. And then will be placed, just like any ordinance, placed on your agenda for introduction. We'll go to the planning board for consistency, and then back here for adoption. And moving forward, ordinances are living documents. They're meant to be changed and evolved as things change and visions change. So hopefully we'll be able to set the borough up so that future changes won't be as cumbersome as maybe they've been in the past. So that's the 10,000-foot explanation. There was a lot of small little things that went into this, a lot of little detail changes. You did not get a red line version because it got so complicated I had to toss it. I stopped using it in March because I couldn't follow where anything was. So what I did with the version I gave you was I used the comments commanded word to pull out where things had changed and give you little comments notes, what sections were new, what sections were from the old ordinance. So if you do have any very specific questions about the edits, I'm happy to answer them, but you would have not been happy with me if I had brought you a full red line version. It just would have been kindling for a fire. So I am happy to answer any questions. I know it's a really big ordinance with a lot of details, but if you have any concerns, questions, want to make sure something is in there that you remember from a previous application, happy to answer.
No, I know you're very competent and very diligent.
Well, thank you. We're trying.
We've been working together for years.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. It's all good.
We're supposed to get a copy? I didn't see anything.
You got it about 3 weeks ago.
The full version?
Whatever she sent me, I sent to you.
Yeah, it's about this big.
We just sent it out again, I think.
That's a digital version?
Yeah. Should be, hold on.
You.
You know, because it's
Sure, it's very daunting. It was very daunting.
Yeah.
It's attached to your agenda.
I emailed it the day before
Yeah,
this
this one.
vacation, so.
A small agenda, not the big one. There's 2 agendas.
And there's several attachments in there as
So it's
well.
draft ordinance. Oh,
That ordinance, is that full?
Yeah.
document?
There's been a lot of changes
That's all
over
the
the
charges
past
that
couple of
we
years.
just spoke about. in the-
There's been a lot,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's a great idea to just try to centralize it and try to make it
Yeah.
more user-friendly, and, people want to, improve their homes and do things, and it's a lot easier to have everything consolidated and more concise.
Absolutely, and this will make it easier so that you don't have the residents spending time and money using one ordinance standard and then coming to the board and realize they used the wrong one. So that'll be hugely beneficial.
The townhouse zone again, what was the purpose of that?
So that was part of, back in I believe it was 2017, our office did a downtown, well, even, actually, sorry, let me back up before that. There was a 2016 downtown master plan that, again, our office prepared where we literally went through downtown and took an inventory of every business, of all the development, put forth a bunch of recommendations about how to help revitalize the downtown and standards that would be relevant. And one of the recommendations was to add this townhouse zone in these 2 discrete areas to act as really a transition zone between appropriate retail and commercial uses and the residential, single-family residential zones beyond that. So it permits townhouses and very small-scale retail. So it's sort of what you have in your OR district a little bit, or you have the small-scale delis and that kind of thing next to a 2-family home or something of that sort. So it really would just allow a little bit of transition. And the southern one, the southern little zone of the TH zone is already a townhouse zone. So it's really just kind of putting them into, it's already a townhouse development. So it's really just putting them into the townhouse zones that it's consistent.
Yeah, they're all 2-family, 3-family. Douglas and Potter,
Yeah,
not
so what
Potter,
street
but
is that?
it's First Street, the low end of First Street, and, what is it,
It's like right off Gales Drive.
Douglas.
Are those pictures in this PowerPoint? Is that picture that's up now, is that in this PowerPoint? What changed?
This here?
Yeah.
This is the PowerPoint. Oh, you mean the actual map?
The copy we have
PowerPoint that we
on-
have is not.
Oh,
I'm
right now
sorry.
I don't have-
I didn't realize you said the PowerPoint around. Apologies. Yeah, our map person was out sick last week with a stomach virus, so we only got it updated today. Yeah. So I'm sorry. I didn't realize you'd send it out. I'll send you guys this.
Yeah, if we can get a copy with this in it, that would be,
Yes, and I'm going to send you the full zoning map as well. Again, it all happened today because she was sick for a week. But yeah, you'll get this and the whole zoning map so you can see. And we'll do the zoom in one so the text isn't covering everything.
So basically what it is this side of Oakland Avenue to the Sage Street, all those old houses.
Yeah.
And the other side is First Street,
Yeah.
by the wagon wheel park
Uh-huh.
that we just bought.
Yeah.
all in there in Douglas Street that goes to the
Oh, okay,
bridge.
that's what
And
the
they're
other
all
big one is.
two-family houses, except for
Got
one.
it.
One is a single family.
I thought we had accounted for that in the downtown master plan or
Yeah.
that draft, right? We had talked about it.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, there was a whole,
Yeah, yeah.
my memories was a whole
Right.
conversation about that, yeah.
Right.
And I have, I mean, if anyone is missing the 2016 master plan, we can send that around as well, just so you can look at what was the impetus for all of this. Again,
So
specific-
Gary was heavily involved in that, right?
Yeah, I remember that, because it was.
You were in planning board then.
Yeah, what happened, so what happened with that?
So the
That
ordinance-
was never adopted, right?
The ordinance itself was never adopted, and if you remember, it was very graphically laid out with diagrams and little call-outs, and my understanding was that it was too cumbersome to codify, because then it could, just as we're saying here, it could never be amended. So there was some hesitancy, and I think it sort of got lost. And
Maybe we should go over that again. I mean, things have changed since 2016.
so we did review, so the ordinance itself was from 2018. We did review it with Keith and with Debbie and with Margaret. And then we talked about it later with Bernadette and with Wendy. So we have gone over it some. I'm happy to send it out again if you'd like. I mean, it's also in the text that you have, but we could also highlight that a little more so you can pay maybe a little more special attention to what's happening in that area.
But those recommendations are incorporated into this provision.
Yeah, all of the standards from that, there was even additional definitions. I think the only thing we didn't include was the graphics. Everything, all the standards are in here though.
I want to thank you because this will make it a lot easier for Margaret and Debbie and Keith. I mean, it's all going to be in one place and easy to read, so.
Right, that's the goal. So
Because
you
some
know,
of the-
future changes will be easier to
Some of
incorporate.
these builders and architects are very creative with the vague ordinances.
Well, there's one reason why I'm so excited to get this finally adopted for the downtown, because there's so many design standards. So it's going to provide developers of your downtown a lot more, not just guidance, but specific direction about what you want to see in terms of an aesthetic for New Providence, so that what's being built is something that you're proud to call your downtown. Because it's harder with just bulk standards, because people could do anything.
Right.
So.
Well, thank you. That was nice and quick.
I told you I would.
I know. You're good. You get through some of those planning board meetings and you lose your will to live. Oh.
Yeah, the zoning board on Monday, yesterday was
I
maybe
heard.
one of those. But if you have any, if you think of any questions, or if you do decide to skim through it, one of Susan Gruhl, my boss's favorite jokes is it's great bedtime reading, and it is. But seriously though, if you do skim through it and see something, we have a few weeks to continue doing some edits. You can pass them through Bernadette, and I'll make
So
sure
the
they get
intent
done.
is to have this on the first reading in August, at the August 16th meeting.
Of course it is.
Is everybody gone?
And then the planning board gets it after it's introduced.
There's really no change in what we're doing except for redesigning and you bring it up to current codes.
Modernizing it, right? Yeah. There's some things that we didn't even touch, like the sign ordinance hasn't changed. I know the planning board just reviewed that. Down the line, once all this gets going, that might need a revisit, but again, now it'll be easier to do that, so.
Okay. Good, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. Thank you for coming early.
I won't be here with 6. Okay.
Well, luckily it's just been an introduction, so.
As long as we have 4.
And I'm happy to come back in September for I don't know if you want to do a formal presentation or a public hearing or whatever, what's up to you guys.
I don't think so. It's pretty cut and dry.
It is, yeah, I mean, if someone wants to go through it with a fine tooth comb, we'd be happy to review that with them. Thank you. Okay, great.
I can actually see them what's on the sign.
I just have to do a motion for adjournment.
Do we have to announce public comment?
I don't think it's necessary.
Thank you.
So we just need motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, we don't need roll call for that. Okay, we call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Kaminsky.
Here.
Mrs. Johnson. Here. Mayor Morgan.
Here.
Ms. Williams.
Present.
Mrs. Belisca. Here.
Salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is a public meeting of the Council of the Providence County Union State of New Jersey. Adequate notice has been given in accordance with PL 1975. Chapter 231, an annual notice of revision was made in conformance with Section 13 of the Act. Okay, we have a few ordinances. First is Ordinance 06. Please read the title.
An ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 225 of the Code of the Borough of New Providence entitled Streets and Sidewalks.
Have a motion, please?
Second.
Okay, what this ordinance is an ordinance entitled Streets and Sidewalks. And what it is about when a utility company, somebody comes in and it's a newly paved road, that the road has to be repaved curb to curb after, I think, we put in 5 years. If anybody wishes to address council on this ordinance, and this ordinance only, please raise your hand. Seeing no one, I declare the public hearing closed. Roll call, please.
Mr. Kaminsky.
Here.
Mrs.
Aye, sorry.
Mrs. Johnson. Mrs. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Mrs. Belisca. Aye.
Ordinance 07, please read the title.
An ordinance adopting a form of notice of claim pursuant to NJSA 59:8-6.
Okay, what this ordinance is a notice of claim. If somebody wants to sue the borough, there is a form that they have to fill out, and this is to codify that form. Okay, anybody wishing to address council on this ordinance and this ordinance only, please raise your hand. Seeing no one, I declare the public hearing closed. Roll call, please. Oh, motion, please.
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Kaminsky.
Aye.
Mrs. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Mrs. Belisca. Aye.
Ordinance 08, please read the title.
An ordinance amending Chapter 147 of the Code of the Borough of New Providence entitled Fees and Licenses.
Okay, what this ordinance is an increase in road openings for sewer lines and new construction, and then I think we're bringing that up to the rest of the area. So anybody wishing to address council on this ordinance and this ordinance only? Seeing no one, I declare the public hearing closed. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Kaminsky.
Aye.
Mrs. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Mrs. Belisca. Aye.
Okay, ordinance 09, please read the title.
An ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 257 of the Code of the Borough of New Providence entitled Vehicles and Traffic.
Have a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I know a lot of you have questions, so before we do this, I am going to ask Sergeant Diamond to come up and give a presentation. What this ordinance is a reconfiguration of the dropping off and picking up on Pioneer Drive, Westview, and High Street and Balcom. I know we have been in it, you have, Andrew and Bernadette and the chief, you've all, and the engineer, Kevin Boyd is here, all have met with the Board of Education, and they are in full support of this plan. After what happened in Uvalde, Texas, found out there was a lot of different doors kids were going in and out of. This plan, everybody will be going through the front door of the high school and through the door with the school resource officer right there. I know it's going to take a lot to get used to, and you've come up with this plan, which I think is a good one. The thing is, everybody's just going to have to get used to it. And, if it doesn't work, it's not etched in stone. We can change the ordinance, but we're fully aware that some people feel like they're gonna be, I'm trying to find the right word.
Pissed off.
What's that?
Pissed off.
Yeah, I'm sure they will be. And thank you for your clarifications. I know it's a big change. We've been trying to get people and students to drop off at the pool and walk to the school. Been trying for decades. It just hasn't worked. So this is a way where we can control the traffic better and make it safe for everybody. So Andrew, I'm going to leave it to you right now.
Good evening, everyone. Just a little background on the project and where it kind of started off. So the high school and middle school area, for many years, as long as probably I've been here, we've been getting fielded complaints and of different types at the police department with regard to the high school. So this study that we conducted in cooperation with Kevin Boyer and our borough engineer is in response to requests from the school administrators, the borough administrator, complaints from residents in the area, parents, students, and our own observations of what we see. So, and it's to evaluate possible improvements as it relates to travel in the area of the high school and middle school. So the study involves field observations, review of existing conditions, review of data from speed and volume surveys, different correspondence that we've gotten, and the police department's own records management system. So we looked at issues related to traffic flow and lack of parking in the area. That's been documented as far back as actually 2016. The study examined Pioneer Drive, Falcon Road, Providence Street, High Street, and Westview Avenue. So what are some of the complaints? These are in no particular order, so I'll just start. Number one was that the service levels at the intersection of Falcon and Central were very poor, so cars were waiting a very long time to make a left out of there, and even a right, should you have a lot of traffic coming out of any of the streets that intersect there. So traffic could back up on Pioneer Drive in excess of 600 feet, on Falcon Road rather. So that was primarily caused by the vehicles turning onto Central Avenue and making left turns. We had vehicles attempting to get into the school's circle driveway. They would literally become gridlocked. We would have to have an officer go out there and physically untangle, 20 cars that are just tied in with each other. There's just nowhere to go because everybody's right on top of each other in a circle. I think everybody's familiar with how that looks out there. The volume of vehicles that need to get into the school to drop off was causing the circle to become congested and making it impossible for people to enter and exit. Probably the most paramount one that we saw was a student safety issue. So the students that park in the student parking lot, they were just crossing. They would park, they would come up out of the student parking lot, and they would simply cross wherever they wanted. So they weren't using the designated crosswalk. They crossed in between vehicles. There were parents letting kids out on the wrong side of the road where there's no stopping or standing or parking. And it just, the angles that they were crossing, it just was a free-for-all. So that was going into school, and then coming out of school, vehicles that were illegally parked along Pioneer Drive waiting for pickup. You had those same students now needing to go back to their cars in the student lot, and they were simply coming out from all different angles, but they were coming from in between those illegally parked vehicles. So that was the most paramount thing that we saw was like, this is a major safety issue for those pedestrians. And there's a lack of parking for parents during pickup and dismissal, but not only that, during sporting events and whatnot, we had people parking all over private parking lots, things like that. So that was the bulk of the complaints. We The Traffic Bureau, along with our borough engineer, we went out there on a couple different days. We verified those complaints through our own observations. What you see here is just a couple pictures that we took, and also some footage, some still shots from the school's surveillance video. So what you're seeing on the two ends there is literally just gridlock. Those cars are just stuck there because they can't get in or out due to the volume. And then the dismissal lane at Falcon and Central there in the middle. We definitely believe that these issues need to be addressed, and some of them can be addressed relatively easily with signage and road striping, while others require some financial investment for both the borough and the Board of Education. And we'll get into those. So we came up with some recommendations for the roadways that we looked at, and this is, I'll just kind of run down these. So converting Pioneer Drive to a one-way traffic flow in westbound direction, permit on-street parking along the northern side of the roadway west of the school's exit driveway. This parking is prohibited, would be prohibited between 7 and 9 a.m., and that's to assist with drop-off efficiency. So we want to create a through lane, a drop-off lane, so we don't want people parking in that drop-off lane. We want that to be able to be clear, so cars can efficiently pull up, drop off, and move along. The creation of a 12-foot travel lane by striping an edge along the southern side of the roadway. That's our through lane. Creating a dedicated drop-off lane along the northern side of Pioneer Drive. Installation of fencing along the southern side of Pioneer Drive from Providence Street to the student parking lot. So the purpose of that fencing would be to basically not allow the students to exit wherever they want when they're leaving that student parking lot. It would push them to a newly installed mid-block crossing on Pioneer Drive, which is next is installation of a mid-block crossing at the student parking lot. For Balcom Road, that would also be converted to one-way traffic flow in the southbound direction. We would also recommend the installation of a dedicated left lane and a dedicated right turn lane at Balcom and Central. There would be on-street parking allowed on a portion of the western side of the roadway, and we would remove an existing 2-hour time limit on parking. For Providence Street, prohibited parking, stopping, or standing along the western side of the roadway from Westview to High Street. So that's currently in place. That's a big drop-off location that we see. We've seen cars 4 wide there dropping and trying to pass. That's another location that's really it's become dangerous with how the parents are letting the kids off there. So being that entrance to the school is no longer available to anyone due to the school safety measures that have been put in place, there's no reason to drop off there. So we want to continue to enforce the parking prohibitions that are there. And then we would prohibit parking, stopping, or standing along the eastern side of the roadway from 7 to 9 and 2 to 4. On High Street, so we would prohibit left turns onto South Street from High Street from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Monday through Friday on school days. So again, we're trying to get the vehicles in and out as efficiently as possible. And what we saw was if you have cars going through that circle, basically Westview to Providence to High, you're just creating another 4-lane wide situation where parents are just dumping kids off and then they're fending for themselves in the road. So, so that would be used to assist with that and to control the movement of the cars leaving the area of high school after they drop off. Remove the 2-hour existing time limit on the southern side of the roadway. We found that the parking restriction really, when you looked at it, it just didn't work, right? So you had students who were parking there, coming out, trying to leave school every 2 hours to move their vehicle up a couple feet just so they wouldn't get a parking ticket. So it became, an enforcement issue for us as the police officers that we weren't enforcing it because you would see the kid like running out on his lunchtime and trying to move his car. So it just doesn't really seem to serve a purpose there. Prohibit parking on the northern side of the roadway from Providence Street to a point 125 feet east, and from South Street to a point 150 feet west. That's really just to allow room as the cars are coming in to turn. Right now, parking is allowed in those areas at a time restriction, I think it's 3 hours. So what we're seeing is that as cars are turning from south, they're literally almost running into the back of them and then having to go around. So prohibited parking along the southern side of the roadway from south to 160 feet west, and permit 2-hour parking along the northern side of the roadway from 7 a.m. to 4, Monday through Friday, from a point 125 feet east of Providence Street to a point 150 feet west. Currently, it's 3-hour parking, so we would, in order to have everything be similar to each other within the area, we don't want to have too many different ordinances there, so the 2-hour parking would do. But Westview Avenue, prohibit parking along the southern side of the roadway, and prohibit parking along the northern side of the roadway from South Street to a point 80 feet west. So South Street would restrict left turns onto Westview Avenue during the hours of 7 and 9. Restripe the roadway between Marion and High Street with a single travel lane south, a dedicated left turn lane north to High Street, and a dedicated through lane traveling north. Remove the current east-west crosswalk from the southwest corner. We find in our study that there's a major vehicle to pedestrian conflict there as parents are looking left, so north, to look for traffic. The crosswalk is to the right side of them. They see that they can go, they start to move out, and there's kids in the crosswalk. So we noticed that there was a major conflict there. So moving that crosswalk to the opposite side of the intersection, one essentially to the north side, you alleviate that. And then installing the necessary lane guidance. Those are the recommendations. And then we have some maps on what it would look like. Let's see, so I'm kind of trying to zoom in here. So I'll just kind of go step by step. So what you'll see is, this would be Pioneer Drive, Providence. This would be, the yellow is showing you no parking zones. What you'll see is a drop-off lane and a through lane. Those are those two dedicated lanes that we talked about. The drop-off zone would start immediately following the crosswalk, if you can see where that is. And you're giving yourself, instead of about 6 cars being able to fit in the circle for drop-off, we're now fitting about 30 cars at a time for drop-off. So essentially they would move all the way forward, drop off, next block comes in, drop off, next block comes in. So instead of 6 cars at a time all trying to get in and out of the circle. They would then merge back out into the single lane and go out Falcom, where those dedicated left and right turn lanes are. This is Central Avenue. With regard to some of the complaints from the residents on High Street, especially down towards the dead end, was cars were parking in the dead end area, and they actually couldn't access their driveways or back out and make turns. So installation of dedicated parking stalls there at the end of the roadway, a dedicated area where a parking restricted area that's actually striped out on the roadway. And this is the installation of the new crosswalk here. You also end up with some additional parking on the street along Pioneer to Falcom. And then south to High Street, we've received approval from the County of Union in concept right now to, this would be the installation of the dedicated turn lane. So you have Marion Avenue right here. This is obviously South Street running north and south, and then this is High Street. So currently, in its current form, a lot of our backed up traffic is being caused by cars that are turning left on the High Street are holding up cars that are trying to go through. So in order to get them and keep them moving in an efficient manner, we propose to install that dedicated left turn lane and also have a through lane so traffic can continue traveling north. You'll see the red crosswalk is the old crosswalk. The white one here is the new one. phase 2 of the project would include the installation of rapid flashing beacons there. And that is the gist of the plan. So,
I guess my first question, as we discussed it, was coming out of Balcom onto Central. And that's a big tie-up. And right now you have a crossing guard, and the crossing guard can't direct traffic. So I guess we'd have to put a patrolman there.
so actually, the crossing guard can control the movement of traffic that is directly related to the pedestrian and vehicular access to the school. So we are going to have in the beginning of this, we will have an officer out there to assist. Both myself and the other traffic officer will be present at 2 different intersections to assist with it. But the crossing guard is able to stop traffic, allow the kids to cross, and then allow the cars to exit. And that is the plan, to do that.
Now, will there be a crossing guard at the end of Westview?
Or High Street.
No, Westview. There's one on High Street now.
There is one on High Street now, and so that's another guard that will assist with vehicular traffic and the pedestrians obviously coming out of that intersection.
Okay.
So the guard at High Street will be able to move traffic?
Correct.
Okay, because currently
They
it
don't.
does not.
Currently they don't.
Currently they do not, so there will be a more active, hands-on person.
Correct, yeah, there'll be a different guard there.
So the people that live on the Roberts side, for them now to get to the high school drop-off line, they're gonna have to make that left from Central onto South Street,
Correct.
right? So any idea when the county when we would put that left turn lane there?
So right now, the county has submitted a grant for reconstruction of that intersection. We have approved, in concept, we have approval to install dedicated left turn lanes on all approaches from that. But the actual signal heads, we don't have a time frame. The grant has been submitted for that. So the intersection will be brought up to today's standards. So that includes, the size of the traffic signal head will change. The amount of signal heads will probably change. We will get the dedicated left turn arrow, and then whatever else is necessary to bring the intersection up to today's standards.
Going back to the crossing guard question again, will the crossing guard who can move traffic, will they also be there during the lunchtime hours or just during morning and dismissal? Because now lunches, kids get to go out now for lunch, you have driving kids, high school kids, coming in and going out for lunch. So the question there is, will there be a traffic backup during lunch as well coming off of South Street?
No, the amount of kids that leave so to answer your question about the crossing guard, no, they won't be present during that time. They will be present during the AM and PM dismissal and drop off.
Well, I think one of the key things is that for years we've been trying to get the students to park down at the pool and walk up. And also have the parents drop the kids off at the pool and walk up to the high school. So hopefully that will occur.
Can you go to the other map that had High Street and also talk about Westview? Weren't there changes for hours of travel on Westview?
Yeah, so the restriction for Westview as well. So Westview is right here. There will be a turn restriction that will stop vehicles or prohibit vehicles from turning left onto Westview from South Street southbound between 7 and 9 and 2 and 4.
So then everybody who's coming in has to go down High.
Yeah, so if you were coming from the south side, you would come in and go through I. If you were coming from the north side of town, you would enter through Westview and come up and go into
So really, the only one way is actually Pioneer and Ballard.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And are there restrictions on Westview leaving in the morning? I forgot.
No.
No, okay. So you can turn left or right there?
Yeah, you could turn left or right, absolutely. But keep in mind that the parents, in order to do this safely, right, like, so that's the paramount thing here is their safety. We don't want parents dropping off on this side of the street anymore, right? So that's what they've been, a lot of parents will do that. They'll come in and they'll turn here and they'll just dump their kids off. And that's where we see the most dangerous situations, you know, right in front of our eyes. I mean, these kids are, especially here, if they're dropping, they're cutting diagonally across the intersection, and they just go. So what we want is for those parents is to pull in to our drop-off lane, drop off, and then exit the way that the roadways are being designed to now flow.
So basically, bottom line, the entire high school, middle school entrance for pickup and drop off is coming through one street.
Through two.
But he's saying South Street.
It's going through one, right? I mean, no one's gonna pass Westview or High Street, right, to make a right onto Westview, right? So everyone's gonna be making the turn onto.
So the families coming from the north side of town should use Westview. So they're coming south on South Street. They're not going to drive past Westview to go to High Street. We want them to go in Westview, come around, and go in, just as they probably do today, right? The families coming from the south side of town, that's who we want to use High Street, go in High Street, and make the right onto Providence and the left onto Pioneer.
What I have seen is that people on the south side don't go down High, they go down Westview, make the left on Westview so they can drop their kids off on the other side of the Providence door. And that's where that door's gonna be
That door
locked.
is locked, there's
That's
no
when it
longer
used to be open.
an access
You
point.
would go in through the science ones, you would drop off at the science
Right.
ones, but since that's not an option anymore, there would be no point in doing that.
Right.
All right, I'm sorry, I'm a visual learner, I'm not getting this. Who's gonna use High Street?
So if let's just say you're coming from Hansel Road, you would turn left at Hansel Road onto South Street, come north, and you're going to turn onto High Street and go in, and that's your means of going into the high school, right? So you're going to go High Street, you're going to go right onto Providence and the left onto Pioneer. That's what most would do today.
That's like one road though, right?
On that whole side of town, so if you're on the upside of Central, or probably if you're on, if you're on the Sawbrook side, so if you're coming up Central and going onto South, you would go up High Street.
Going up Central.
Like I would come down from my house
So
that
right
way.
onto
Rob
South
would come
Street.
down from his house
You're
that
gonna
way.
pass High Street.
No, you make a left onto High Street.
You make a left on High
Yep.
Street.
Correct, because you're going to have that dedicated left turn lane to
You
turn
would
left.
you would be making the right onto
Westview.
Westview.
From your house.
house. And then coming that way, and then other people.
I thought I heard you were prohibiting left turns, that's why.
So we're prohibiting left turns from High Street onto South Street from 7 to 9 now.
So anybody coming around would
Correct.
have to make a left turn back. They'd have to go.
Correct, and that's to encourage them to use the drop-off process.
I have a lot more questions, if you could.
Go ahead.
All right, so financing and the logistics, I don't know who's going to answer this question, maybe we don't, I know we have, but it looks like there's a lot of striping, signage, right? I don't know if there's any fees that are going to be paid to get ordinances or the state involved or whatever, but how's that going to work? I'm not sure.
It's accounted for in the capital budget this year.
So all the striping and signage we're paying for, schools not paying for anything?
It's our streets.
Again, I'm asking questions to get things out in the public, because I know these are probably questions people ask. Okay, so we're prohibiting a lot of parking, I heard, in certain areas, but it looks like we're adding parking. Do we know what the total plus or minus we're going to wind up parking spaces? So is it
It's between 30 and 35, depending on what the agreement, I guess, really is on Kevin's side. on whether we go with the tandem parking versus just regular standard stalls, right? So, but it is between about 30 and 35 spots.
Or adding or losing?
And
Or adding.
so from a losing standpoint, I actually, there's no, the only place that we're losing so-called parking space is about 100 feet at the intersection of South and High, which we're extending, so that the stop sign's there, you can't park within 50 feet of it. We're extending it back to allow more, more cars to essentially queue up in an easier fashion.
Yeah, I heard
Design.
reducing parking spaces. I know that with the students, they all park, right, like you said, they're parking, and if we're, I want to make sure that that's a plus.
Yeah, no, we're not.
If we're in a
taking
plus,
away.
then that's good.
Yeah, we were definitely, that was a big component of this, was how do we add some parking as well. You know,
And then
that's-
the drop-off lane, let's start with that for a second. So
Sure.
you enter the drop-off lane, you're in the drop-off lane to the end, you can't get out
You
earlier.
are, correct.
And so who's going to enter the non-drop-off lane?
Through traffic, anybody that's just going through, or say there's somebody with, somebody's on crutches, something like that needs to go in, school buses, they can come in the through lane, and there's going to be the school resource officer is going to be at the entrance, and he'll control the movement of those vehicles. There's about maybe 10 to 12 estimated per day that would bypass the through lane and go into the main entrance of the school. Otherwise, that main entrance is going to be blocked off the same way as the other schools are, with no, we don't want parents or anybody in there.
So what I foresee happening for parents that are waiting to get into the circle, they'll just have to get off right there on the sidewalk for the rest.
So there is no wait, there's no getting into the circle's closed off.
Okay.
So the drop-off zone is actually, so we want everybody to pull as far forward,
I see.
right? So this whole area now is drop-off.
Oh,
You drop the kid and then they can walk. These crosswalks are going to be restriped. They're definitely old and they need to be. So we're going to restripe them. The kids will get off on the sidewalk side and they'll walk up to school that way.
Are we gonna have anybody out in the beginning to tell people to go all the way to that third block?
Yes, so the school resource officer will be there. The school, the principal will be out there giving us a hand. And we know for the first couple of weeks, we're going to need to have officers out there, and we're prepared for that.
We have signs that people don't pay attention to now.
You said that, so for crosswalks, enforcing the kids that walk in the crosswalks now, like you said, fencing, so fencing going up?
Yeah, so go to the student model. I don't know if you can see it. I don't know if you can go a little closer. So you see the black dash dotted line around here? So that is fencing that we've asked the Board of Education to erect there. And what that's going to do is basically push the kids who are all in, who all pull in and park. Instead of them crossing at all these different spots, it's going to push them to right here. This will actually have a ramp that they'll be able to, a new ramp would be installed, and they'll cross here. There won't be rectangular rapid flashing beacons, but we would install flashing similar to the stop sign, that same type of flash during the drop-off and pickup times. It has a schedule built into it, and so parents and anybody using the roadway would see that there's a pedestrian crossing.
How are students getting to fly?
The entrances and exits are still, so this is closed right here during school hours. That's been for a number of years. They close it, yeah. They don't.
I'm sorry, is there a fence break on the right-hand side, or is that just solid? So like that crosswalk, see the
Right here.
crosswalk? Yeah, like
Here.
right at the end, that crosswalk there, is there a way they can get to that crosswalk?
So there would be a gate there, but we want the students, because again, they're closing that entrance to the school, we want them to go to
all the way.
that crossing, that new crossing.
So that crosswalk is more so for pedestrians coming up High and Westview.
But then you're also forcing kids who parked to walk through the parking lot when other kids are coming in.
No, so so if they park out here, they'll be
No,
able
no, no,
to.
if you have a parking spot, if you're a senior who has a parking spot, and you're parking in the lot on my right side,
Mhm.
which is closer to the further, crosswalk, if I'm the last parking spot, then I'm walking through the entire parking lot while other kids are coming in.
Correct.
Or you come out to the sidewalk and go around.
Could do that also.
They're still going to use that crosswalk.
Which is fine. We just want them to cross at an established point where it's properly marked, there's adequate warning, and they're not popping out between cars and whatnot, so.
That might, what did you say, that might be a thought? I mean, it might be the thought to put an entrance over there so they could go right by the other crosswalk.
You know the problem with that crosswalk? People make a turn right there, and the kids are right there. When they make a turn, they don't pay attention.
That is a hard turn when you go left onto Pioneer Drive because kids are crossing, well, kids right now are crossing everywhere. So it's hard, if you can put them on the crosswalk, that would be better, but that's what makes that one more difficult.
Okay.
That's one more question. So, I know Waze sometimes, and it's a silly question for me, but it's not, but Waze sometimes, directs people and they just follow it to, how are we gonna make sure that, people coming to sporting events at the high school and whatnot are making enough turns down the one way?
Yeah, so I've become very intimately knowledgeable about how Waze works with everything, with my responsibilities are now. So basically all we do is submit a copy of the ordinance and evidence or photograph of the road being converted. We send it to their New Jersey map coordinator, and he kind of uploaded it just like that. So yeah, he actually did it for me for Fairview, for the no right turns. So I went out there, took a shot of my cell phone, emailed it to him, and they made that correction. So we would look to work with them to get that completed.
Great. Okay. At this time, we have questions from the public. Yeah, Nancy. Yeah, come up here.
I was really trying to hide back here. Okay, question. First of all, how many parking spots are in the pool parking lot?
That I don't know.
Hundreds.
Okay. Is there enough parking spots to cover the privilege of parking at the high school?
There's 64 spots at the high school for students that are issued by permit.
64 spots in,
The student parking lot.
okay. So if there's 64 spots, is it possible that the only parking would be at the pool parking lot? The student parking lot now becomes the teacher's parking lot. The teacher's parking lot now becomes visitor spot, and you've now opened up visitor spots for visitors to the school there and in front of the school.
Don't think the teachers are going to go for
Well, you know what, if the families and the residents of New Providence have to adjust, I mean, as you said to me today, they don't even follow the rules now, so what makes you think we're gonna do all these changes and they're gonna follow the rules?
we have to try.
Okay. We as adults in this room right now, I'm assuming we're rule followers, and it's a privilege to drive to school. So it's not the kids, walking across the street, it's not the kids walking across the street here. If they're told where they need to do it, they run the risk of losing their privilege. Okay, and as for parents mostly will follow whatever rules you set. But now I see on South Street, the entrance into South Street for that corner building that I work at is on South Street. The exit is onto, what is it?
Westview.
Westview, okay? So now, Westview, does that ever turn back into a two-way?
Westview is two-way.
It's only a couple hours.
It's only a couple of hours.
Yeah,
But it's always,
No, it's always a
a
two-way.
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 The only streets that would be turned one way here is Pioneer Drive, which fronts the high school, and Balcom Road, which goes out to Central Avenue.
But you
Okay,
can't
so
make
this street, Pioneer Street, is that what it
That's
is?
Providence Street.
Providence
That
Street.
stays two-way.
That stays two-way.
Correct.
Okay, so High Street, at this intersection, is that Two-way?
Two-way.
Is anybody gonna be manning the traffic here of both of these coming in?
In the beginning, we'll have officers there to assist.
Okay. This part,
Correct.
is that two-way as well?
That is not, that's one way.
That is
So
one.
the only one way begins here and goes out here.
Okay.
That's it. So if you're, you,
Read them out.
Yeah, we can't see.
in there. So which, you work at which building?
I work on the corner of South and where this change is gonna take place.
139 South.
That's that.
Yes.
So you would, nothing changes. So you would still enter and exit, and you can go that way, or you can go that way. The only thing that you won't be able to do is, let's say you're coming Central Avenue, so you take Pearl to Central. You won't be able to make a left onto Balcom and come in that way. You're gonna have to go to the traffic light at South Street, make a left, and then come in the driveway here.
So that affects the half of the town that's on this side, is that right?
That, it could, yes.
Okay. Now, when you were talking about Marion and the other street, redoing the street,
That's this section right here.
Yeah.
So it's South Street from Marion to High Street. What we're doing is we're taking the two-lane roadway that has existing shoulders, and we're removing those shoulders in that section, and we're giving a dedicated left turn lane and a dedicated lane for through traffic. Right now, you get a car that stops to make a left here, and it takes them 95 seconds to make a left. Everything's getting backed up all the way back here, which I'm sure you see, being that you work right here. Right now, those people will be able to come straight through and go on their way to the north side of town.
okay. So with adding the 35 parking spots and the 65 permitted parking spots, would it be more beneficial for the town to designate just the pool? Like that's the rule going forward?
But you can't make people park at a certain spot.
I understand that, but you also can't make people follow this too.
Well, yes, you can,
What's the
because it's a
difference?
traffic ordinance.
But if the school is issuing a permit to the students,
I can't tell you what the school does, that's out of my control, what the schools do. What the schools do with their students is entirely up to them. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about here. We have always suggested that the students park in the pool parking lot. We've done that for years. They don't do it. They think it's too much of a walk.
okay, so we're adding 35 parking spots. Who's that benefit for? The parents driving the kids?
It's for whoever's going to use the high school.
Visitors, students.
So now you've got people walking from South Street all the way into the high school.
No.
You just said visiting parents and students.
Yeah, so they can park there right now if they want to.
Yeah. If you go down Westfield and High Street, they're all parked along the side of the road. Now,
Well, that really should have been halted years ago of the students not being allowed to park on those streets.
Yeah, but if we can't restrict someone from parking where it's legally allowed to park. And if we try and restrict the students from parking, we're now restricting,
the residents.
the residents from access to their home. Like, what if I live on Westview and I'm getting a furniture delivery? Should my truck not be able to pull up in front of my house? Which is the reason that we have limited type parking. That's what that's designed for.
So
So
with
they-
limited time parking, the students really shouldn't be parking there because they have to leave the school premise to go do
Which
it.
is what's happening. So that's why on High Street, we've said, hey, we're going to remove that and allow them to park there because they're doing it anyway. Same thing with the patients who visit the vet. The vet's parking lot just over spills and everybody parks on High Street. So we want to go out there and really enforce those. Is that really fair? It's like one of those spirit versus letter of the law. We have to be cognizant that you don't have parking in there, right? So where are the employees going to park? We need to allow them to park on High Street.
I totally understand that. That's where stickers come in for employees of the company and
We can't regularly, we can't provide stickers to somebody to say, you can park on a public street and you can't. We wouldn't even attempt, that's not constitutional.
I understand that. It seems like there's a lot of work to accommodate things that the school can't institute. As again, as a parent and as a student, it's a privilege to drive. And I feel like we are totally revamping everything to accommodate trying to get people to do the right thing instead of saying, this is what needs to be done. So are we rewarding bad behavior?
So it's also to manage the volume of traffic that's there and keep everyone safe. It's not just the people who aren't doing the right thing. Right? We're creating a traffic safety issue for whether it be the drivers that are on the road or pedestrians, the students, by not acting, right? By leaving it alone. So, and by not controlling that volume, I think we're kind of opening ourselves up there. We know there's a problem. We need to try and fix it.
I just think it's easier if you dealt with the school system and have them make the changes and let the parents know that drop-off and pickup is either in the pool parking lot or the kids should park there. If we're only dealing with 65 kids for the permits.
Those are just the seniors that are parking at the high school, though, right?
In the specific line.
But there's, 65
There's
just
a
seniors
couple
that
hundred
are
more here
parking.
for the drop off.
This year's senior class is 174 or something like that.
Right. But 65 get lucky and get a parking pass, and the rest park in the pool. We're on the side streets.
We signed an agreement with the Board of Ed many years ago to permit them to park in the pool parking lot for kids that did not get the permits.
For that other half of the year. And then they switch.
I just brought that up just because I'm not sure I understand the concept of moving the parking around, because it's not the parking is the issue, it's the traffic flow is the issue.
Well, that is part of the problem. I mean, I know anybody that has grown up into the elementary schools or the high school, people that drive, dropping their kids off, have tunnel vision. And, there's been numerous close calls, if not accidents. And, this whole thing is being done for safety, and safety only. It's not to punish anybody. It's not to impose our will on anybody. It's all about safety and bringing kids, dropping them off, and getting them through a single door where the SOR is. And that's what it's about. And God forbid something happens. I mean, people say, well, this is a safe town. It won't happen here. Well, guess what? So is Uvalde. We have to look at everything. And, we were one of the first ones to put the school resource officers in the schools. And I want to, we have to commend the Board of Education because they pay for half of that. But, we can see that there are problems. And safety is a paramount responsibility. And you know what? We have to try this out. And we may have to tweak it. But until we try this out, we're not going to know. So, Nancy, you brought up some good points. And trying to change behavior is very, very difficult. And I understand what you're saying. I think we all agree with you. They all should be parking in the pool parking lot. In fact, a lot of parents should be dropping their kids off in the pool parking lot. But they don't. So we have to deal with not what should be done, but the reality. And that's what we're trying to do here.
Is somebody here from the Board of Ed?
But anyway, okay, anyone else wishing to address council? Yeah, Donna.
Do you need name and address? Don Zane, 54 Brookside Drive. First, yay, thank you. I know it's been an issue for years, and there's no thing that's going to work out perfectly the first time around, but I agree that you have to try to address the issues that are being seen, because now, if I understood your answer prior, there's going to be an officer at the beginning the people coming off Westview, the people coming off High, turning down Pioneer. Obviously, people coming off Westview would have priority, but I could see it as people on High. You said there's going to be an officer there
So
trying to encourage alternating or
In the
something?
beginning, there's going to be multiple officers assigned along that route to assist everybody with getting in and getting through efficiently until we kind of get a learned behavior there.
All right,
Traverse it.
I do sort of agree. I think Diane was the one who said maybe have a gap in the fence there at that corner. But I do like the fence because that hopefully will prevent the snowplows from dumping snow on the sidewalks. That's right there, that become impassable. So I appreciate that. My only before I get to that, I know you're discussing the full parking lot. There was, in relationship with the police several years back, other remote drop-off locations encouraged. Are they going to be in any way, shape, or form restriped or?
They're still in place and they're still on the STEM Streets website. We still every year share that information. It's just unfortunate that
people coming from AWR, that Spring Street one or things like that. I haven't tried to evaluate them recently, obviously, but is there any attention struck down the street that we paid to?
It's not something we've considered, but it's something we can talk about.
And then so my only actual real concern is moving the High Street, South Street crosswalk. Now, most people who come from my neck of the woods are actually crossing at Marion now at the new crosswalk you have down there. So they're not impacted. So really, and a lot of people come from the other direction are crossing Our Lady of Peace. So hopefully this is not getting a lot of students, although I know it does get a lot of students because it's the existing crosswalk, and that's where you always walk, you cross it. So you need a crosswalk to get all the people from Dunlap and First Street and stuff like that. But you're putting the sidewalk, unless I'm confused, there is no sidewalk on the north side of High Street. So the kids are going to have to cross that crosswalk and then cross again to get to the sidewalk.
So the guard would cross them, the guard would cross them from the east side of South Street to the west side and then across the other intersection.
So you are still having the visibility issue. I mean, Carter, yes, I understand when you're right there, which is now you are restricting traffic to go right during certain hours. That you want to make people not run over the kids that way, or the guard, who probably sees the worst of it. Is that actually, for the people who are, now that you have that dedicated turn lane in, and hopefully the people going straight will obey the guard and not just plow through as well. I'm not seeing that that's actually making it safer for the kids because that double crossing.
So we're removing that pedestrian vehicle conflict from the right turn.
Correct.
That's
the right turn is one you're taking away by moving the crosswalk.
Correct.
I'm just not sure.
And that's the one that's existed there.
But you're adding the left turn in. If you're turning off South Street onto High Street, now I have to make sure the crossing guard now not only has to dodge people going straight, very happy to go straight hopefully, but they're also crossing people with left-hand traffic.
So he's doing that now though.
Okay.
So he's actually crossing, he's crossing both legs of that crossing there now.
I agree that absolutely that's a dangerous thing. I'm hoping that most students will start using the manned crosswalk at Our Lady of Peace, and I think Marion has a light actually. I used that one before. So I'm hoping most of the older kids will not be using that one, but I still think, I don't know that it's fixing it. It might be. That's not bad.
And it's more of a...
Okay, no, that was all. That was my last concern was mostly that crosswalk.
I was going to say, it's more, to your point on it, it's more of an issue leaving school than coming to school, and there's more of a huge impact of everybody going to school at the same time versus staggered leaving because of clubs or sports or music or something. So to your point, that's a
I
very
have
good
seen
point.
people so happy to turn left and if they get a break in traffic, that they will accelerate. I mean, hopefully they're watching the crossing guard because they're in the front, but I've always, every time the cone goes up for the snow, I've always watched people be like, oh, run that over and stuff. But thank you very much for
Thank you,
everything.
Donna.
This will solve a lot of problems.
Anyone else?
Actually, one last thing, it will
Yeah,
also
Jen.
help having a crossing guard who does do the traffic. That will
Yeah.
help with that. As opposed
Go ahead,
to-
Alan.
Hi, Al Swanson, Over Hill Road. I just have a clarification question on the relationship between the town and the Board of Education with regard to a couple of issues. The school resource officer reports to this.
The police chief.
Okay, so then the town has control over the activities of that officer within the.
Yes.
Okay. So whenever the police are on the school property, they're operating it's within their jurisdiction to do what they need to do. Okay. So the question then is, who owns the property that the school is on, and who owns the property specifically for the student parking lot?
The Board of Education.
The Board of Education owns the property.
Mm-hmm.
So they.
That's why they're paying for the fence in the parking lot. That's not borough property. They're responsible for that. We're responsible for the roadway.
Okay, I guess it goes back a little bit to the conversation about just sort of having people do what's right, kind of thing. The reason I asked them the clarification was it just seemed a little strange that you're not able to specify how a lot can be used, but if they actually control who can park on the lot, I guess that answers my question.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, Jen?
Okay, I just really have a couple of questions. Okay, Jennifer Niederhofer, 32 Club Lane. I really like some of this. I love the fence at the parking lot. I know we spoke about the kids kind of darting out through the traffic in the morning. A lot of people do park at the pool for pickup and drop off, so I don't know, like, I've been doing this for 2 years there already. My daughter gets picked up at the parking lot every day at the pool.
Thank you.
And it's busy. Like, I had to pick up there during COVID. There were a lot of cars parking there at pickup, so people are using the pool. I don't know if students are parking there all day, but I assume they are. It's not a long walk at all. So for me now, like, I would come down South Street, make a left onto High, go through the circle, and then go back out High. Either go back home, which is in Countryside, or to go to Salt Brook to go to work.
You can't go through the circle.
Right. So now, like, for me, I would have to go past the school in that drop-off lane, where hopefully people are pulling up to the front, which they don't do at Salt Brook or Roberts, so hopefully that will be manageable. But then come out Baltham, and then either make a right to go to Springfield Ave if I'm going to Salt Brook, or make a left onto Central to go back home. I guess go routes too. So on Baltham, there's going to be a right turn lane and a left turn lane and parking.
It's not the road yet.
It's not
Not
working.
yet.
So there's enough room for all that?
Correct, yeah.
It's gonna be a one way.
The parking's not until like 9 o'clock, right? So during drop-off, specifically, there's no parking there,
Okay.
right? Am I right?
Was it, would you say it was 100 feet from the,
No, I think that's the South Street.
So you have,
Yeah, I don't want
so if you look, the lane markings start in the neighborhood of again, this is not the scale, so in the neighborhood of the exit entrance driveway for the sharing network.
Okay.
So the spots are before that.
Okay.
This would allow, so the way that it's
So
set
those
up.
spots you can't use until after 9.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's the school safety, that's really where that's derived from, is we don't want someone being able to just leave a car where kids are walking, kids are going into school. So I think a lot of it is more, they're gonna feel inconvenience than
I mean, I'm concerned
anything
about
else,
people
but
on the Roberts side more. They're gonna have to come all the way down through the center of town to South Street, where you're gonna add to the traffic of people making left turns. Because right now, a lot of them are making a left turn onto Malcolm, and then going into the circle, and you all know how to do it. You know, you weave, you let people in, it's always works.
So part of alleviating that is the dedicated left turn in High Street. We're going to allow vehicles to queue us there.
Okay.
Right now, you can't do that.
No.
So one person turning left
Yes.
can hold up 35 cars, right? And that's what everybody in their head is thinking. So if we can get those 35 cars out of there, what's it really going to do? And that's what we've looked at.
But now, like also like Donna said, we're gonna have students also now crossing across High Street at that intersection because there's no sidewalk.
Which they do now. They do that now.
Well, right now they cross on South.
Then they still will.
Cross High.
Well, they have to cross High because if they cross South right now, they walk down that sidewalk, they walk west on High Street, and then to get to the school, they cross.
So either way, they're crossing at some point in that intersection. It's just, it's gonna be a different direction.
It's going to be, instead of it being on this corner, it's going to be on the further corner, the northern corner.
Right, but those students are gonna have to now cross like here, like
Correct.
right now they're crossing here, and then they walk along the sidewalk, and then they kind of randomly cross at the next intersection. So now they're gonna cross here, but they're gonna have to
And then
cross
the guards will
here
cross
to
them.
stay on the sidewalk.
Well, give it a shot.
Oh, and just one on High Street, like the park, first of all, I love parking. No parking, right? I asked you that. There's always this fucking car right here every single day, and I'm like, they're gonna get hit. But can you park on this side of the street, by the houses? Okay.
We're just marking this because what we end up with is cars are literally all the way up. So in order to keep it, the parking correct and not hanging over the sides of the entrance.
And will that be 3-hour parking, or that's gonna be like?
No, that's what they can, no restrictions.
Okay, so that'll be good, because like if I have PTO stops or if I'm subbing, that's what I do.
You park there. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Hey, Joe. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
My name is Stephanie, I'm a 58 principal. Thank you. One thing that has not been addressed is the students and their time. So there's a reason that the students don't park at the pool, and it's because there's not enough time to leave school, walk to the pool, drive to home or somewhere to eat, park back there and walk back to the school all in your very limited time for lunch and professional period. The same thing goes, the same thing's gonna happen. It's actually gonna become worse because now their drive to come back is further, along with, I appreciate what's happening for the safety of the students because I do think that it needs to be addressed. My concern is that we have like a 10-minute window in the morning, maybe a 10-minute window in the afternoon where we have a problem, but now we're taking a problem and we're just putting it at South Street at that traffic light. 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, we're gonna bottleneck that intersection. And we're taking 100 inexperienced drivers who are gonna come to school, leave for lunch, go back for lunch, leave after school. So now that's 4 times a day, just those students, not including the parents who are trying to hurry up and drop their kids at school and get to work on time. So we're creating so much more traffic at that intersection, and I appreciate the left turn lane, and I think that that will help. But as a mom, I am concerned about the number of inexperienced drivers that are going to go through that traffic light, because all of it's going to be right there. So I think we're moving our safety issue from the school to South Street, and we're not considering the students and the amount of time that they have, or the frequency of trips throughout the day for the kids who, and the moms who have multiple kids, because one sport and activity doesn't begin and end at the same time. I'm a frequent visitor of the high school. I have been for many years, and the thought of making that trip longer and having to make that many lefts in one day at South Street is daunting. So I wish that there was a solution that addressed it only during the problem times and left everything alone the rest of the time, because I agree that parents do
let everyone in. I understand that there's multiple issues with safety, but as far as coming through the circle, there's sort of like a flow. I've been doing it for years. It's every other car. So I wish that we could just address it during the problem times and leave the traffic pattern alone the rest of the time. I think that would be ideal to the half of the town that's on my side. I know they're not all here, but I think I can speak on their behalf, or many of them anyway.
Okay,
So
thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Yes, Ken?
Question, the buses for UCDTS, will they still park in the circle?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I just want to clarify. So currently, students cannot exit onto Pioneer Drive, right, if you're leaving for lunch. You're in that lot. So you're coming out onto High Street, so it doesn't change anything for students leaving for lunch. They'll be able to traverse those roadways the same exact way that they do today with this conceptual plan.
Well, they can't come down Pioneer Drive from Central Avenue. They're still coming through South Street. Because you're saying that's a one-way all the time, right?
Correct.
So there's half the town from
But
the Roberts side has to now come down Central and make a left on South.
But all I'm talking about is lunch. I just want to clarify that for you. Nothing changes because currently the school for the last probably 7 or 8 years has blocked off the exit of the student parking lot onto Pioneer Drive. So those students come out, every single one of them comes out onto High Street, and they can leave and go out to South Street. They don't need to go down Pioneer Drive.
Right, but to come back in,
They can come back in the same fashion.
or, exactly, they can come back in the same fashion, but there's a lot of houses that aren't on that side of town. So anyone coming from the Roberts side of town would come in Pioneer Drive, and they can no longer do that. So you're forcing that much more traffic onto South Street. And it's going to be multiple times a day. It won't just be in the morning and in the afternoon. So aside from the additional businesses and families moving in, I think it's just really crowded.
I just wanted to make sure that you knew that they can leave that way, that's all.
Yeah, right.
The buses for UCDTS, so they'll still be in the circle?
Correct.
For 7 a.m.?
Correct.
Anyone else? Yes, Steve?
I'll let the residents finish.
Now, Nancy was up here already. Come on up.
Steve Corrales, 35 Sycamore Avenue, Berkeley Heights. In the short form, I head the state chapter of the National Motorists Association. I came tonight to get the fuller picture of this traffic pattern change, and as it said, there would be a presentation. And, you know, it relates to this ordinance, the one that you're going to also introduce tonight. And aside from my narrower interest in seeing state law followed regarding a certified engineer-approved traffic engineering study, I have the privilege of representing new association members who are residents of the borough. Apparently, many of the well-publicized traffic issues that have cropped up over the past couple of years have contributed to that. Kind of the first comment, I thought about it even before I saw it happen, is like after hearing about that great communications plan last week, I was wondering why this wasn't a conference session before any of these ordinances were introduced. You know, like...
excuse me. Mr. Boyer was here and explained it last meeting.
Last meeting?
Yeah.
Oh, there was just a short description that talked about...
what was going on here.
I was here at that meeting, so it was obviously, you know, visuals, and one of the nice things is when you have materials like this, they can be available after they're presented. People can reflect on it. They can add other ideas that maybe weren't considered.
Believe me, it was all over social media today.
The presentation, well, they know about it. Well, good, they come to an event, that's fine.
And I'm happy they came and expressed their opinion.
Yes, and I'm just wondering, in light of your communication plan, why I wasn't in conversation. I'm not going to argue with you about it, it's just the appropriate idea for you to think about. The other area I want to talk about for other aspects of the plan, just to make sure you know, kind of fully informed, was some of the messaging. Clearly, a lot of this is related to congestion, the safety, but I also heard about, and again, Mayor repeated today, security. Now, I understand it sounds like we want everyone coming in one entrance, and that's fine. And I asked myself the question, how the street traffic relates to everyone getting in. If all of the doors are locked, there's only one way people are going to get in. And the other concern I had when I surveyed the property was with no fencing around the periphery, anyone can get to any part of any building, and you may hopefully keep those doors locked. But what about windows, unless you have a locked window? So I'd advise, in addition to thinking about the safety aspect as regards to traffic, if you want to talk about security, it's definitely about that.
This ordinance is about this traffic, not about the school safety.
Right.
So,
right. So
not about the windows or the doors. Please, stick to the ordinance.
Yeah, just to be brief, you're concerned about security. You've mentioned it as part of the hearing. I wanted to just make sure you understood that. As far as, it looks like with the work that's done, there'll be a documented engineering study. That's always good to know. And you can see why you need this sort of thing. I just wanted to add to that and talk about the things that the residents started to allude to that weren't originally discussed. Often when I've talked about what the needs of a traffic engineering study does, it's the relationship to the manual on uniform traffic control devices. In this case, for one-way streets, which we're addressing in this ordinance, pretty much it's easy to do. It requires all the use of the signs. And those will be the R61 and R62 signs, which are those one-way signs you're used to. You may need the R6, 6, and 7 signs that begin and end it. You'll already kind of covered the need for the striping from left and turn lane from Balcom onto Central. Probably also need to deal with a do not enter sign from Central Avenue to deal with that. And then the other standard in the manual that I haven't heard discussed was you're going to have to deal with signage on any roadways and alleys, and sometimes the property entranceways that intersect the one way, because there are several, not on Pioneer, but on Balcom that you have to be concerned about. Now, given all the signs on that note that are dealing with the one-way change, not to mention the ones needed for the parking, standing, and drop-off restrictions that come with the ordinance we'll be introducing tonight, this will get expensive, as I believe someone was wondering about. And it seems like it's going to take a while to implement if, given the delay that you've experienced with trying to have the change to the speed limit signs after passing that ordinance. So be wary of your time schedule. And my last point has to do with traffic pattern, which I was happy to see many of your residents were recognizing. With the change to one way, all the access now to the high school has to come from South Street, and it has to wind through several neighborhoods. And I think you heard some of the scenarios I was going to talk about that says now people who are on one side of town have to go down the other way and come back around. People who are at the school and who live in the other way have to go in a different direction. And then another thing that the residents haven't mentioned yet, several buildings on Balcom have loading docks. And right now, tractor trailers can get there from Central Avenue. Now they have to go the long way around and through the neighborhoods and then get down with the only way they can get there.
Those two facilities that are there have other entrances from Central Avenue. So you're not correct in that assumption.
Well, their loading docks are on Balcom.
691 has an entrance, and so does 631.
Right,
So,
and the loading docks, I observed again this evening, are on Balcom.
So you'll just have to go around the building.
Oh, so you think they can access those loading docks from that side? Well, that's good that you know that. Because certainly, in addition to creating a different kind of traffic problem, or, yes, to solve this problem, you'll create others. There'll be more left turns, which when you model that are a recipe for more accidents. It's a tough ballgame to deal with. And of course, people are coming to these neighborhoods right now in terms of traffic. It's just, there's going to be more of it, and people have to be driving longer distances. And it'll likely be, it makes it a difficult problem. So, but you've heard about some of those issues from your residents. I was happy to hear, and you all asked some good questions. So, good luck.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, at this time, we'll move on. We need you talked to everyone. Anyone else? Seeing no one. Kevin, do you have anything? You're the engineer.
About the traffic? No.
You did the study, which I know, so Mr. Corellis knows you did the study.
Yes.
Right? Okay. Okay. Okay, at this point, I'll ask for a motion, please. Yeah? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Kaminsky?
Aye.
Mrs. Jeffrey?
Yes.
Mr. Munoz?
Yes.
Mrs. Belisca?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew, Sean, Chief. And I want to say that Chief will be leaving us August 1st. And, you know, I just want to thank you for everything you've done for the borough. And you've been terrific. Okay, let's go to appointments. Diversity Committee, Sarika Devante.
Do we need a motion?
Motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No, so be it. Mental health advocacy, Deborah Merrick. Motion?
Call motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
No, so be it. Okay, approval for minutes, June 14th. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
No, so be it. June 28th. Motion, please.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
No, so be it. Okay, we have correspondence from Penn Jersey Environmental Consulting about the well restriction area, which is 755 Central. New Jersey American about distribution system improvement charge. Well, as you know, they're doing a lot of water main repairs and things like that, and they're looking to get more funding for different types of infrastructure investments.
Did we post that one up on the website? That notice that there was the notice was there was a Zoom call for that? That was July 11th? No? I think we should make sure that when we have things like that regarding, I would have called into that. I would like to hear, you know, they're going to be raising rates, right? So I think we should put that up on our website. If we get stuff like that, so we can correspond, maybe be a little more proactive on that.
Okay, City of Linden protesting implementation of PL 2021, and that requires municipalities to conduct lead-based hazard inspections. Boy, I tell you, Linden would probably have a ton of them.
Is that gonna affect us at all? I mean, right, we're gonna have to flip the bill for that, right?
But we have a plan in place.
New Jersey Transit requests for financial assistance from the feds, which is nice. Friends of Perillo, response outcome is 755 Central, and the remediation work is complete. Edwards Engineering, application for flood hazard area. They're looking for a verification from DEP for 144 Hales. Town of Westfield.
That says Commerce Street, isn't that Commerce Drive?
No.
It's not Commerce Drive?
No, it's 144, it's Glennside Nursing or Spring Grove. They put an addition on. Right? Oh, no, it is for board. I thought it was, I'm thinking about last meeting.
No, I just looked at it, it says Commerce Street, I went to look for it.
You know what, they're probably looking for that wetlands
Right.
interpretation from that.
But even the map that they provided says Commerce Street. I think we should notify them. I don't know if that's gonna be an issue for them, but I hate to see that be a legal issue because they used the wrong street name.
Yeah, it goes by plan on their permit.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, good. So,
Okay, Town of Westfield, The ABC wants to put limited conditions on brewery licenses. I gotta tell you, we went through a lot. I know Tom Kane here spearheaded that whole thing. I think we should, go along with this resolution to oppose any limitations. Is everybody in agreement?
I don't know if they're putting new limitations. I think there's been existing limitations for the brewer licenses, because when we heard it on the planning board, all of those that were listed were conditions that were already, part of getting that.
This is a new bill coming in to put in more restrictions.
It looked like they wanted to open it up more to be able to make it more of a bar than a brewer, but, obviously, our brewer in town is doing fantastic. It's a great facility.
That's why they're opposing the bill, because they want them to be able to keep going the way they're going. Okay, New Jersey Fire Department, membership of Van H. Lynch, and another one for Kevin Shan, who just got his Eagle Scout,
Right.
which is nice. What's that?
And he just graduated.
Yeah. And State of New Jersey, land use authorization permit for 111 Spring, which is the barn property. Okay, let's go to council business administration, Diane.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution 2022-191 is a resolution of the Borough Council of the Borough of New Providence, County of Union, State of New Jersey, adopting a policy for issuance of proclamations for the Borough of New Providence. Basically, this is adopting standard operating procedures for requesting a proclamation from the mayor and council.
Okay, community affairs, Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution 2022-192 is a resolution authorizing the application for Kids Recreation Trust Fund grant for the Borough of New Providence. This year's an application for $65,000 to replace playground equipment and create a patio hardscape for some picnic tables. I know the Recreation Department's constantly looking at our playgrounds around town and looking for ways to make sure that they're upgraded and they're in good standing. They're applying for a grant here to help Leeds Lions Park right now.
Okay, and so keep going, finance.
Resolution 2022-193 is a resolution authorizing payment of the attached bills payable list in the amount of $4,760,849.81. This payable list includes the Board of Education July payment of $4,014,540. Our July health benefit premium to the state of New Jersey for $105,926. Our July payment for the library of $84,585. Our May and June garbage payments of $83,333, as well as to college engineering, $305,491 for multiple engineering projects that we've been approving in our last meetings. Most of those are being paid with grants and capital funds as well. Resolution 2022-194 is a resolution providing for the insertion of any special item of revenue in the 2022 budget pursuant of NJS 40A 4-87, Chapter 159, PL 1948, Safe Routes to School Program for various sidewalk improvements, SRTS 2022. So this is an award of the amount of $223,000 for our 2022 Safe Routes to School project for various sidewalk improvements. That's good news. Resolution 2022-195 is a resolution providing for the insertion of a special item of revenue in the 2022 budget pursuant of NJS 40A 487, Chapter 159, PL 1948, 2021 Union County Public Art Mural Grant Program. And this is an award from Union County for $5,000 to be used for benches at Harmony Park. Thank you to Arlene for seeking that grant out. That's going to be great.
Okay. We have a raffle request, RA 1168 and 1169 for Solbrook School PTA. They've been properly prepared and reviewed. introduction of ordinance 10, which is an ordinance that will alter the parking regulations on Westview High and Pioneer that we just talked about. Resolution 196 is the issuance of a consumption license to Alley Cat, which is Harley's. And resolution 197 is a resolution so we can submit a grant from the American Rescue Plan Firefighter Grant Program up to $75,000 by the Department of Community Affairs. So I guess we're going right to the bank, right? Okay, Public Works, Rob.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution 2022-198 is a resolution authorizing the application for a Greening Union County 2022 grant for the Borough of New Providence. We're asking for $2,500 from the county so we can plant some new trees. Resolution 2022-199 is an approval to submit a grant application and execute a grant contract with New Jersey DOT for Maple Street and Union Avenue improvements that will cover both of those streets, the entire length of those streets. Resolution 2022-200 is a resolution amending a prior resolution 2022-190 an amount not to exceed $98.32. So that original resolution was so we could order 2 pumps for the wastewater treatment plant, but it turns out because of supply issues, those pumps wouldn't be received for quite a while, but there are 2 pumps that we can get that are available for immediate delivery for an extra $400. So from $90.32 it'll go to $10,200 and change, I believe. So this resolution amends that prior resolution to provide for that additional $400 expense.
We need those pumps.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, personnel?
Thank you. Resolution 2022-201 is a resolution appointing James Testa as part-time CFO treasurer for the Borough of New Providence. That'll be effective immediately. I just want to give thanks to our prior CFO, Joe Kowalczyk. That's it.
Okay. Any discussion items? I think we discussed enough today. Okay, committee reports. I just wanted to say the fireworks are great. And Bernadette, I want to thank you and Allison and everybody, Mike Savage, PJ. I mean, it was a good time. And the fireworks were great. I want to congratulate the PBA Egg Night House competition where Fave and Esteban Rodriguez were the winners, and they were cops for the day. And I was privileged enough to swear them in the other morning, and they were great. And they attended the Youth Academy that day, and presentations from the Union County Bomb Squad, drone unit, and SWAT team. And it was a great program. And while I'm saying that, I want to congratulate the same day that the Police Youth Academy had 14 participants, and all 14 graduated, and I went to the graduation, and they were terrific. So it's a great program for any kids going into 6th, 7th grade. Okay, we had a first concert in the park, which was outstanding. I want to thank all the sponsors and Zita's, who provided Italian Ice, Prestige Diner, donating hot dogs, and the Lions Grilled and Served, Tropical Smoothie for giving out smoothies, sample smoothies, Acme for free water bottles, Doc Robinson giving out bags, and the Advanced Federal Credit Union for giving out beverage containers. Next concerts are Thursday the 21st and Thursday the 28th at 7 o'clock. And National Night Out will be the last event this summer, and that'll be August 2nd, right? And that'll be at 7 o'clock, and there'll be fireworks at that, and I know Al Elefante's gonna have like a 16-piece band, and it was terrific. But we want to thank all of the local businesses for doing this. And the one last thing I had was, I went on the cemetery tour at Presbyterian Church last week, and John Spalnelli did a lot of work. He was terrific, and I think I even impressed him with a couple of thoughts that I had. But it was great. It was great. We have such a history in this town, and we all need to pay attention and learn from it. I mean, we go way back, way back. When you think that Presbyterian Church was built in 1737, and it's still standing. So, okay, I think that's about it that I have. Yep. That's it. So, Pat, you're up.
So just two quick things. One, 4th of July, I just do want to mention, I do want to thank Bernadette and administration and mayor and council for getting that done. It's one of my favorite days of the year, so I appreciate that. I did have a great time. I thought it was a great turnout. And it was a brief fireworks for sure, but great nonetheless. I look forward to even getting back to the normal, going forward next year as well. On the finance committee, just wanted to mention that our bond anticipation note, we went out with a notice of sale on July 10th for $9 million. Bids are due tomorrow at 11 a.m. and we'll award that bid around 2 p.m. Our bond team will review the bids and do the calculations to make sure that they are, work out appropriately. And then we should be receiving that money on July 28th. That's it.
Great, thanks, Pat.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I was going to reiterate about the concert on Thursday. This upcoming Thursday is at 7 p.m., rain or shine. We had a great turnout, so bring your chair or blanket and join us. It's a great evening for family. It's nice to see a lot of families on the
It's going to be hot.
It's going to be a hot one. Mental health, advocacy, and education. Prior to coming to the meeting tonight, I had a meeting, just a chair meeting with them. We are still underway in a process, and we are still looking for volunteers. So if anybody's interested, bring ideas. The volunteer form is on our action line. Also in the mental health front, there was a big change that happened within this last month. So now for any suicide emergency concern, it's very easy now for people to reach out for help. There's one direct line, 988. Text that for help and assistance if anybody's contemplating suicide, or you can call that number as well. So it's an easy direct line. I believe it's nationwide, 988 for any suicide assistance and help. Reach out. People are there to help 24/7. It's just a phone call away.
Any mental health.
Not just suicide, but any mental health distress. It's a distress line. Any mental health distress line. So just 988. So that's a great update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was a Board of Health meeting on July 6th, last week. So the Wonder trucks, we talked about those. So Wonder has registered 18 food trucks in New Providence, and the Westfield Board of Health is making arrangements to start inspecting those trucks. There was also a discussion about food trucks at private events. I think like Saltbrook or maybe Roberts had some food trucks come in for the last day of school or something like that. So the question is, do those trucks have to be inspected if it's a private event? I think the PTA was paid for those food trucks, and the answer is yes. They still have to be inspected. The Board of Health is going to send out a letter to the Board of Ed, letting them know that those trucks in events that have to be inspected, but usually we waive the inspection fee for nonprofits, like the PTA. As far as the COVID update, the numbers are down in New Providence from May to June by 42%. The number of BA5 patients has doubled from from the prior week, at least the date of this meeting. The BA.5 is the latest Omicron variant. There have been no deaths so far, at least as of July 6th, in any long-term care centers. And many of the cases you're seeing in the LTCs are asymptomatic from this BA.5. And Moderna is coming out soon with an Omicron-based booster. So that'll be out this fall, and I think that we recommend everybody take that booster. They'll be doing pop-up clinics in the county soon for kids that are 6 months or older. They'll be kind of doing at pop-up centers like daycare centers and schools, pre-Ks. And as far as monkeypox, there were 7 cases in New Jersey. 5 of those were in Union County. And LabCorp will begin doing direct patient testing for monkeypox. If you have it, you can go there and get tested. There is a limited vaccine supply, though, for that monkeypox. They're only giving them to people that have had close contact with individuals that have tested positive. And that's pretty much it.
Good, thank you. Diane?
Thank you. You stole my thunder about the cemetery works.
Sorry.
Although there is plans for, I believe it's 4 Centuries in the weekend, which would be October, mid-October, I think October 15th. So look for those. Board of Ed just status quo, they're working on their audits and different things. And I just wanted to give a shout out to our recreation department. All the camps are going on, and we've heard a lot of great things. So shout out to our wonderful recreation department.
Thank you. Okay. Bernadette?
I'm going to defer my time slot to Kevin Boyer. Because
Okay.
he has some exciting news to tell us.
Oh, oh my God.
I certainly don't want
Are
to
you
steal this thunder.
trying to tell me I'm going to be a happy man tonight?
You're going to be happy.
All right.
Contractor called us this afternoon. He will be on site tomorrow.
Really?
Yeah. No short notice. I'm guessing something fell out of his schedule. So
Now, I hope we're talking about the same thing, the bridge.
yes. So
Oh, thank God.
Yay!
I'd love to hear that great news.
Thank you, and I know you've been on there's 6. And I know Bernadette and I have been on your 6, so, but, thank you.
If they start tomorrow, is there a proposed completion date?
I don't have that yet. We're still waiting for the material, the actual structure itself. But so they're going to start removing the existing foundations that are there now. Basically just block the concrete, and then they're going to dry piles, do foundations, do abutments, and with anticipation of the structure getting delivered mid-end of August, and basically to pick up and drop type scenario.
Nice.
So much like the last 2 bridges, once the abutments and the concrete is poured, it really is a matter of setting the bridge in and attaching it and pouring a little bit more concrete. So we're on track at least. I can't do the rest of it until we do this part. So
That's the best news I've had all summer. Oh, I'm so happy. Great.
Thanks, Kevin.
and then any operations are normal.
You know that? Oh, what about my flashing lights?
Those are, should have.
I never let them off the hook.
I should have the plan Thursday.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, at this time we have public comments. Anybody wishing to address council? Yeah, Donna.
It's a question, also thank you. 2016, is there any information on, asking maybe, but someone else may have taken the answer, New Jersey Transit with that Livingston intersection?
The Safe Routes to School.
Yes, I'm sorry, Safe Routes
to School portion of
2016.
Livingston Avenue. They denied us. Yes.
They, sorry?
They denied us.
No.
So it will start a little bit further down.
Okay, so we're not going to be able to.
We're not abolishing it altogether. but
Climbing
it will
up
be-
to hit the little button.
Correct, we're
All
still
right.
climbing the hill.
Oh, is that the corner with the?
Yes.
Okay,
All right.
gotcha.
We were hoping to, and they said no.
You know why? Because of the terrain right there. Okay. Anyone else? Seeing no one, and declared public comments closed, I need a motion for 1 through 13, please.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Kaminski?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mrs. Belisca?
Aye.
Okay, before we go to adjournment, I just want to thank everybody for coming. And Dylan, I want to thank you for doing a video. Our usual videographer is stuck somewhere with the airplane couldn't get him here, apparently. So, they blame it on COVID, supply chain, whatever it is, but thank you, I appreciate what you're doing. Okay, motion for adjournment?
So, second.
Look at Bunny, she's ready. All in favor?
I filled it in on.
No? So be it. Thank you again, and stay cool out there and hydrated. It's gonna be a rough